you putting on a show for me, right? Putting the show on for me. Let's go.
What's up, guys? Swift here, covering everything Chicago Bears. Today I want to talk about a huge need on defense that's going overlooked for the most part, our will linebacker. After the Bears named Matt Eberflus head coach roughly a year ago, Bears fans and analysts began predicting how current Bears players would fit. According to Matt Eberflus and our knowledge from Lovie Smith's similar defense, it's commonly known that for this defense to be effective, there are a couple of really important positions. 3 tech on the defensive line, will linebacker, nickel corner, and safety are probably the most important. And then also being able to generate a pass rush from your front 4. So defensive end also very important. Entering the 2022 season, most of us expected Roquan Smith to fill in at that will linebacker spot. He seemed like a good fit, but ultimately the front office decided to go another direction and traded Roquan to the Baltimore Ravens. Jack Sanborn, an undrafted free agent out of Wisconsin, stepped up at middle linebacker and played really well. Nicholas Morrow was okay filling in for Roquan, but he failed to make a huge impact. Heading into the 2023 offseason now, there is a need on this Bears defense that is getting overlooked a bit, and that's finding that will linebacker. I imagine Jack Sanborn is the starting middle linebacker next season, but apart from him, we need to add another starter and possibly some depth this offseason. It's possible that Matt Adams or Joe Thomas return, same with Nicholas Morrow, but the only linebackers on the roster besides Sanborn right now are Sterling Weatherford, Kuwani Dang, and DeMarquise Gates. There are a few free agent options out there, but I expect the Bears to address this position on day 3 of the NFL draft. The free agent options include Buffalo Bills' Tremaine Edmonds, Eagles' TJ Edwards, Cowboys' Leighton Vander Esch, Colts' Bobby O'Creek, Cleveland's Anthony Walker Jr., and others. But I expect Ryan Poles in the front office to find a linebacker late in the draft that surprises everyone. They got a good look at a couple very intriguing options during the Senior Bowl. There were 3 players on Getsy's American roster that stood out to me and look like good fits at will linebacker in this scheme, and I have my eyes on all 3 of these guys. Those 3 players were Servakia Dennis from Pittsburgh, Isaiah Land from Florida A&M, and Aubrey Miller from Jackson State. Ivan Pace Jr. from Cincinnati and DeMarvion Overshown from Texas were on the other team, and both of those guys are good fits as well. But today I want to focus on the 3 players that Getsy spent extra time with, and those were the linebackers on his squad. He actually talked up Dennis, Land, and Miller in interviews during and after the game. I want to talk briefly about all 3 and what they could bring to this defense and where they should go in the draft. First up is Jackson State's Aubrey Miller. He impressed me all week long. He measured in at 5'11 and 5/8 and 229 pounds. He was seen making plays all week in practice and set the tone for physicality at the Senior Bowl, laying a booming hit on Northwestern's Evan Neal early in the game. He looks the part of a 4-3 will linebacker. He has great instincts. He can read and react. He has sideline-to-sideline speed to track down ball carriers, and he takes good play angles and shows the instincts to play any of the 3 linebacker spots in this defense. The biggest weakness that I could see for Aubrey Miller were his coverage skills. If he can get better in coverage, he could be a starting linebacker very early in his career. I think there's a very good chance that Miller could still be on the board entering day 3. It's possible that he can go in the 3rd round, but he's a guy the Bears could potentially add in the 4th round or later that could come in and help this team out early on. I really like this dude. Next up is Isaiah Land from Florida A&M. He's 6'3", 226 pounds, and he flies all over the field and shows natural instincts in coverage versus the run and as a pass rusher. Land has a motor that never quits, and he really fits the hits philosophy and what Eberflus looks for on defense. On top of that, he checks the boxes that Ryan Poles looks for as well with his freakish athleticism. He was another member of Bruce Feldman's Freaks list. He has the instincts, the angles of pursuit, the burst, the block shedding ability, violent hand usage, and ability to rush the passer and cover backs and tight ends in the passing game. Isaiah Land is the one player on this list who I think has a real possibility of being drafted before day 3. If Land is still on the board when the Bears pick in round 4, I think he would be a no-brainer selection and a guy who can come in as a 4th round pick and start next to Jack Sanborn for the next decade. I also really like Isaiah Land. And then the last guy I want to talk about is Pittsburgh's Servakia Dennis. Out of these 3 linebackers I'm talking about today, I believe he's the best coverage linebacker in my opinion. The other 2 are better versus the run, but Dennis was great in coverage all week at the Senior Bowl. All 3 of these guys can also fill in as situational pass rushers. They all looked good in one-on-one drills getting after the quarterback. The other thing is Luke Getsy was caught raving about Dennis a couple of times during practice and in the game and seems to really like him. Our linebackers coach Dave Borgonzi worked closely with all 3 of these guys during the week as well. Servakia stood out. Servakia is a guy that we could probably get on day 3 and is another guy who can come in and compete for a starting linebacker spot right away. Keep an eye out for this guy. And then I also want to mention Borgonzi, our linebackers coach. He's currently being interviewed for the Cardinals defensive coordinator job. I hope he stays, but wish him the best if he does get the job. Either way, linebacker is definitely a need this offseason. Considering how the front office views the position, though, I think it's much more likely that we draft someone than it is we spend big money on the position in free agency. I believe that money should go towards the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, potentially a cornerback or wide receiver, maybe even a running back. I just don't see us spending a lot of money on linebacker this offseason. I could still see a linebacker signed, but I don't expect it to be a big name. I expect Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham to address this position on round 3 or later in the NFL draft. I believe all 3 of these players could be day 1 starters. Same for DeMarvion Overshown and Calvin Pace. Just from the Senior Bowl, that's at least 5 players who fit this defense and could play the will linebacker spot and be day 1 starters. So this linebacker class is pretty decent. I think it's a really good chance that they are going to find someone they like in the NFL draft. The more I study this offseason, the more I believe we will end up with a linebacker like Aubrey Miller, Isaiah Land, or Servakia Dennis during the NFL draft. Stay tuned, guys. I have so much more coming. Please remember to hit that like button for me. And until next time, bear down.